Okay, so welcome back to my channel. Hi, for those of you who are new, I'm the Modest Bombshell. This is the Modest Bombshell show. And I want to talk about abortion and all of the stupid arguments that I hear that is for abortion. So abortion, I just want to make it clear, abortion is an extremely extreme and brutal medical intervention in which doctors go in with the pointer, with the stick, a medical sort of jabber. They go in, mix up the baby, and then go in with pliers and pull the baby out piece by piece. That's abortion. Very brutal, very extreme. I don't care what anyone says, that's what it is. And as such, it should only ever be used in the most extreme situations. It should not be something that is casually available for people to use whenever. No, it is an extreme medical intervention in which a person is being killed, and it should only ever be used in the most extreme situations, like a mother whose life is being threatened. If she carries her baby to term, she might die. Women and girls who are victims of sexual assault, especially minors. These are extreme situations, and abortion in these situations is called for. Outside of that, it being used as like a casual sort of contraceptive, absolutely not. That is my stance, that is my take, and I'm sticking to it. Now, arguments that I hear for abortion and why abortion should be legal for everyone. Typically, you'll hear things like people saying, "Oh well, what if a woman cannot afford to have a baby? What if she cannot afford to have a baby and she needs to have an abortion, otherwise her child will be born in a poor household and she won't be able to take care of them?" So here's my thing. One, if you cannot afford to have a baby, why are you doing the thing that makes babies? That's one. Why are you doing the thing that makes babies? That doesn't make any sense. That is not a logical course of action. I can't afford to take care of a child, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go and do the thing that makes children. Yeah, it's like, okay, that makes sense. That's smart. You go and do that, even though you know you shouldn't. But fine, we're all adults here, and some will say, well, abstinent, you can't ask an adult to be abstinent. They should be able to, participate in the sort of privilege of sex. But the way I see it, sex is something that only responsible adults should be having. Okay, if you are not in a position to take care of a child, why are you doing the thing that makes children? Sex is for, frankly, people who have money, people who have the means to take care of a child. You don't need to be rich, but obviously you need to be able to put 3 meals a day in the child's mouth. And if you can't do minimum that, then just stop having sex. That just seems like the easiest way to prevent it from happening, right? Then the next argument that I hear is if someone were to say, oh, well, she should use contraceptives. And the argument is, contraceptives don't always work. It's like it doesn't have 100% efficacy rate, which that's the perfectionist fallacy popping up right there. Like, okay, because it doesn't have a 100% yes every time it is going to prevent pregnancy efficacy rate, that means that we shouldn't use them at all. That makes sense. Condoms have a high efficacy rate. Their efficacy rate is not 0, which makes it better than 0. And also, it doesn't occur to people who say this. Contraceptives don't always work. Condoms don't have a 100% efficacy rate. You can mix contraceptives. They probably don't know this because, all the screws and bolts aren't really working in there. But you can mix contraceptives. You can take birth control and use condoms. You can use condoms and spermicide. You can mix contraceptives if you're concerned about the efficacy rate of them. And then one might say, oh, well, what if she can't afford them? Again, if she cannot afford contraceptives, if the man that she's engaging in sexual activity with cannot afford to get them contraceptives, why are they having the sex? That doesn't make any sense. You cannot afford to have responsible sex. You shouldn't be having it then. That means you are not a responsible adult. You cannot be putting yourself in this risky situation where you might become pregnant. All for a thrill. for a few minutes of 7 minutes in heaven. It doesn't make any sense. So even still, even when contraceptives do cost a little bit of money, condoms, however much they cost, spermicide, however much it costs, birth control pills, however much those cost, the cost of them versus the risk of getting pregnant and then having to go and get an abortion, the cost of getting contraceptives is worth it. Whether you're spending under $100 to get a mix of contraceptives, is worth it versus not getting contraceptives because their efficacy rate isn't 100%. So I guess that means we don't use them at all. But versus not getting contraceptives, risking getting pregnant, and then when you do get pregnant, you go and you kill the baby. Or you go and get an abortion. That just doesn't click for me. One should be prepared to spend the money that they need to spend in order to have responsible, safe sex, rather than risking getting pregnant and then having to abort a human being. The two, one is far more costly than the other. Aborting the human being, far more costly than spending $50 on a mix of contraceptives, spermicide, condoms, birth control pills, what have you, Plan B, whatever. So another argument that I hear is, women need to have access to it because, again, if she's poor, or she doesn't have the money to care for a child, she should be able to go and get the child aborted. But it says to me, it's like, okay, if she is so poor, if her and whoever she's with, they're so financially unstable, you would think that they would want to try that much harder not to get pregnant, because abortions are not cheap. Abortions can range anywhere between $600 to $800. A pack of condoms, I promise you, a pack of condoms is under $20. If you go to a women's clinic with no health insurance and tell them that you need birth control pills, I'm telling you right now, you're going to spend less than $100, probably less than $50 to get it. An abortion, $600 to $800. So if somebody is so poor that they cannot afford to have a child, how is it that they can afford to get abortion back to back to back? On average, $730 to $750. How are they able to afford that, but they can't afford some condoms and spermicide? So it's not an excuse. It's just not an excuse. You can afford to go and get a $700 abortion, but you couldn't afford to get spermicide and condoms and mixed contraceptives. Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. So, abortion, it's an extreme intervention. And it should only ever be used in the most extreme situations. Outside of those situations, you have no excuse. You can't say, oh, I can't afford to take care of a child, that's why I need an abortion. But you can afford to get a $700 abortion every time you get pregnant, but you can't afford to get condoms and spermicide? There's no excuse. Well, the efficacy rate of condoms isn't 100%. Right, but not using condoms has an efficacy rate of 0%. So which one do you prefer? Using the condoms, which has an efficacy rate of 70% and up? Or not using them, which is efficacy rate of 0%? Come on, it doesn't make any sense. All of these excuses, they're petty. They're petty. And it only works to convince others that these very entitled people should be able to have access to a medical intervention that kills a person. And there is no excuse. Okay, and now another thing that we hear is, oh, well, if we don't allow women access to safe abortion, they're just going to go and get one unsafely in a back door, someone who got their doctor's degree off of eBay and go and get their abortion from them. And that says to me a few things. That says to me, you're entitled. It says to me that you're responsible. And it says to me that you're a dangerous individual, and here's why. So if someone says, well, you know what, if my state or my government is not going to provide me with access to abortions whenever I feel I need one, whenever it's convenient for me, whenever I've been irresponsible sexually and I need to go and have a convenient abortion, I'm not sick, my baby is not threatening my life, I'm not a victim of sexual abuse, I'm just irresponsible, and I need to go and get an abortion. But my government says, no, you cannot. No, this is a serious medical intervention. It should only be used for people who are dealing with extreme situations. And so that person says, okay, well, I'm going to go and get an unsafe abortion somewhere in a dark alley. That says to me, one, I feel as though I should be able to have irresponsible, unsafe sex. I should be able to enjoy the thrill of having sex for a few minutes, and I should be able to do this with impunity. And should I become pregnant and the pregnancy is an inconvenience to me, I should be able to go and get an abortion. And if you do not allow me to get this abortion, because again, I'm being irresponsible, I'm going to hurt myself. And I'm also going to kill the baby. So that says to me, you're entitled as hell. You're very entitled. You're also a danger to yourself, and you're a danger to other people. That is a crime, and it should be treated as such. So you're going to hurt yourself, you're a danger to yourself, and you're a danger to other people. You're going to kill another person. Capital punishment, straight to jail. That's the punishment. There is no excuse. There's no excuse outside of my baby is threatening my life. If I carry this baby to term, I might die, or I'm a victim of sexual abuse. Outside of that, there is no excuse. Saying, oh, I can't afford it. Okay, well, you shouldn't be having sex in the first place if you can't afford to take care of a baby. And we know how babies are made, so why are you doing the thing that makes the babies if you can't afford to take care of one? Contraceptives have a low efficacy rate. Whatever the efficacy rate is still better than zero, which is the efficacy rate of not using contraceptives at all. So there's no excuse. And do you know what else it says to me that I just thought of right now? It also says that your entitlement to having access to such an extreme medical intervention to be used for casual situations like, oh, I had unprotected sex, or oh, I and my partner had sex and we, failed to use contraceptives because we're in a relationship, and I feel like I should be able to go and get an abortion whenever it is convenient for me. That also says to me that you are narcissistic. You're narcissistic if you believe you deserve to have access to such an extreme intervention whenever you feel like it, without a probable cause. And if you don't get it, you're going to go and hurt yourself and kill your baby in some sort of, back alley abortion clinic. It says that you're super narcissistic. And if you don't get your way, you are willing to hurt people, including yourself. And all I hear, whenever I hear people say stuff like this, all I hear is, wow, this person is so narcissistic. They would rather be able to continue to have casual, consensual sex, irresponsible sex, than abstain and save the life of a person. If you can't afford to raise a child, abstain. Okay, if you can't afford to buy contraceptives, abstain. But no, I need to have sexual gratification for myself, and that those 13 minutes of a sexual thrill, so much so that I'm willing to risk getting pregnant and being forced to abort a human life. My sexual gratification, my personal, temporary, momentary gratification is far more important than a human being. Abstaining from sex is harder than protecting the life of an unborn person. So you would rather, sex on average, you can look this up. I looked this up. Sex on average lasts 13 minutes. The act of actual sex lasts 13 minutes. So someone would rather go and have 13 minutes of sexual gratification rather than abstain and save a human life. No, abstaining from sex is too hard. I'm gonna go and have the sex for 13 minutes. That's on average how long it lasts. And if I get pregnant, I'm just gonna kill the person. That's so much easier than just abstaining from sex. This tells me that you are an addict. You are addicted to dopamine or whatever crazy chemicals are released inside of your brain during sexual intercourse. That high is so important for you to get again and again and again that you're literally risking a person's life to get it. 13 minutes of sex in exchange for the risk of getting pregnant and having to abort this baby. I would rather have 13 minutes of sex than respect the sanctity of a human life. Abstaining from sex is way too hard It's way too hard for me. I need to have the sex. I need to have the sexual gratification because I'm a narcissist and I'm an addict. I'm addicted to the chemicals released in my brain during sexual intercourse. These two things, me, myself, and I, is far more important than another human being, than the human being that I'm forming with my own body, a miracle, which is a miracle. No, I'd rather have the 13 minutes in heaven, the 13 minutes of sex. You're sick. That's what that says to me. You're sick. You're a sick, twisted individual and you need help. 13 minutes of sex in exchange for a human life? You're crazy. You're crazy. Abstinence in comparison should be so easy to do in comparison. Because here are your options. Abstain from sex. If you're poor, you can't afford to take care of a child, abstain. You can't afford contraceptives, abstain. Or have unprotected, irresponsible sex, get pregnant, kill a person. Abort a baby, abort an unborn human being. Which is easier? Which is easier? Which one do you think should be easier for people? Which should hands down be the option? Abstinence, right? No, you're wrong. Most people choose to have the sex, risk getting pregnant, and then going and aborting a human life. That's easier. More costly, though, $700 on average, $750 on average, somewhere in there. But it's easier to spend nearly $1,000, kill a human being, than it is to abstain, deprive yourself of your sexual needs. My needs, my entitlement to sex with another person. It overcomes me so much so that I'm willing to blow my money, $700, money that I really don't have to be blowing, and I'm willing to abort a human life. You're sick.